we've been pairing academics with people within the community, and I did the pairing for that, and quite a lot back and said, how did you do that? Like, we really hit it off. And I was like, I don't really know, but it must be that kind of intuition. I hate the fact that everything becomes a competition between universities, especially around public engagement. Anything that becomes a hot topic for rep or wherever, suddenly you find yourself competing. The very senior leader said the other day that one of the governance groups that I coordinate said was the best example of one university thinking that I've seen.
Hello there, I'm Sarah McCluskey, and this is Research Adjacent. Each episode, I talk to amazing research-adjacent professionals about what they do and why it makes a difference. Keep listening to find out why we think the research-adjacent space is where the real magic happens. Hello and welcome along to episode 81, where I am joined by guest Laura Breen. Laura is Research Development and Impact Manager at the University of Manchester. Her role is a cross-university one. She helps to bring together interdisciplinary teams, connects researchers with community partners, and prioritises collaboration over competition, an approach which has been described by senior leaders as one university thinking. Laura found her way to this work via the museum sector and a PhD in ceramics, where she wrestled with what impact might look like for the arts. Now working across disciplines, she still believes in convening what she calls creative relational spaces and leads with empathy and intuition. We talk about creating culture change, why big challenges need multi-partner interdisciplinary teams, and giving relationships time to grow. If you're listening to this soon after its release, you'll have a chance to meet Laura in person at the Impact Ignite conference in Southampton next week, where she will be talking about supporting participatory research. I'm going to be there too, recording a live podcast interview that will be broadcast in early 2026, so if you're going, make sure that you come along and say hello to both me and Laura. But for now, let's listen on to hear Laura's story. Welcome along to the podcast, Laura. It is absolutely brilliant to meet you and to hear all about your story today. So I wonder if we could begin just by giving the listeners a little bit of an introduction to you, who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks. It's lovely to meet you finally. I feel like I know you through all these podcasts and all the other people that we've got in common. So yeah, at the moment, I'm the Research Development and Impact Manager in the Central Research Strategy team at the University of Manchester. Kind of before that, I've got a background in having worked in impact. I think this is my fourth institution, so different levels, different roles in impact, and a research and practice background in museums, and worked in project management and kind of as a magazine editor and things like that in between. So lots of things going on.
Yeah, really varied background. I'm looking forward to digging into all of that. I think I said before we came on the call, I'd been reading through your profile and I was like, whoa, that's very, not necessarily unusual background, but just really varied and interesting. Yeah. So yeah, definitely hear about that. But let's talk a little bit, first of all, about the job that you do. So research development and impact, having those two things together seems quite unusual from my experience.
Yeah, I think it is. I think when I came across it, I was like, how is that going to work? But I think as I thought about it and as the job evolved, it became really obvious in that there's this focus on challenge-based research coming through, and a lot of that is about both impact and research development. So how you weave those things together, how you convene teams from different disciplines around bids, but are thinking about kind of the impact of that, but how that's written into the bid. The same with co-production and things like that. So I think for a university of this scale, because I think we're one of the 5 largest universities in the country or something. So I think for that, it really does make sense for those things to be woven together, because you've got the faculty-based teams working on those things in detail, but you need somebody to join it up and say, we've got a bid going forward in this focus area. How do we convene teams from science and engineering and somebody from humanities that might know about that? And how do we bring health in? And how do we bring in cultural institutions? You know, the comms team, how do we convene all those people to do this work in a way that really answers societal challenges? So yeah, I think it's the scale of the university, and thinking about it from that perspective really does bring them together and make sense when you're doing the job, I think.
It does make sense, actually. I think saying it's unusual, to me, it makes a lot of sense, because as you say, it's about having that strategy. It's about having that sense of everything from the original concept of the research through to the difference that you want it to make in the world. So actually joining those two things up together makes a lot of sense to me. It's just that not many other universities are doing
No,
it that way. I think that's,
but no, and yeah, when I saw the job, I was like, "What is that going to involve? Can I do this? Like, what is this?"
yeah,
And yeah, and then it does entirely make sense when once you're in the thick of it. It's like, oh, of course, it's an
yeah.
ecosystem. It makes perfect sense to bring these things together.
Yeah, but that's a big job though. If you've got oversight of that for the whole university,
Yeah, but we have
yeah,
kind of. I'm in a team where we've got research culture, bits of research policy. My manager's the research strategy manager, so we all work together quite closely on different aspects of those. And then we've got managers in each faculty who are overseeing the team. So they do the line management, they do a lot of the kind of stuff on the ground. I'm doing the how do we do this as a joint process? How do we make sure we're not replicating things across different teams? How do we not have three different processes for this and have one and
yes,
make sure we're bringing in all the right people thinking
yeah.
together.
Yeah, so I imagine that evolves on a day-to-day basis, lots of
Yeah.
meetings, lots of just coordinating, emailing, joining things up.
Yeah, I think like my manager again is describing me, she's like, you're the glue. It's thinking about who should be in the room for this, who we're missing, who we're forgetting, who should have been brought into this at the beginning. So it's building those relationships really across all different bits of the university. So and knowing who should be there in that project,
Yeah,
kind of having that
yeah.
awareness.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic that you're, as I say, thinking about it at that top level scale. So you've said there that your background coming to this point, then maybe tell us a bit about your story of how you came to where you are now. And then I'll ask the question I was going to ask.
Yeah, I came into kind of the world of impact as it is when I was finishing my PhD at the University of Westminster. So that was on kind of ceramics slash museology. So I was working with three contemporary ceramics practitioners in three museums and looking at kind of the evolution of ceramic practice and how it's moved from object to project. And some of that even brought in ref even then.
Mm.
So as I was writing this up, I was like, the impact agenda is shaping what people are producing because people that are used to making objects have suddenly got to talk about the impact of their work. So it was actually shaping artistic practice at the time. And then the impact was obviously arrived in the ref. And the team at the university looked at me and said, you know about this, your background's in museums. I'd worked in museums for kind of 7-8 years beforehand. You're used to reporting to the Arts Council, you're used to talking about the impact of these things. Can you help us to deal with this thing? And we learned what impact in ref was together and navigated it through that,
Yeah.
got through that ref and went from there, really.
Yeah, I think it's one thing that's really interesting that I found from so a lot of my career I worked in the sciences and then I came into a job where I was working with arts and humanities. And the way that the different disciplines conceive of impact and participatory research and things like that, I think is really interesting. And from what I've seen, and it sounds like maybe from your experience as well, the arts and humanities are almost doing this stuff already. It's baked into just the practice of doing the arts and humanities stuff. And so there's a lot that the sciences can learn from that, which sounds like exactly what happened to you.
Yeah, I think it's baked in it. It's more complicated as well because it is so threaded through everything. When you're trying to evidence things in that kind of quite linear ref way, it's through our processes. It's not just one impact. It's all these little things that are going off. It's impacts on artistic practices. So things like that come up. And like I said, the fact that it does shape artistic practice is potentially problematic in some
Mm.
ways. Are you producing what you would produce as an artist, or are you working in this way so that you can save for ref? I've worked with a museum that has been an explosion of projects reinterpreting museums by people that might not have worked in that way before.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's that, but I think definitely that way of reporting, that way of thinking about audiences was more baked into a lot of that
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that so it makes sense why people look to you to help tell that story of impact. Yeah, what you said there about when it changes artistic practice, that has been I've seen that come up so many times in science and art collaboration projects where you're sometimes what the scientists want or they think they want is a
Yeah,
kind of almost like a literal interpretation of
yeah,
the
very
science.
much. Yeah,
Whereas what the artist wants is to create their artistic vision inspired by the
yeah,
science. And sometimes that sense that what the scientists want is almost like some pretty picture that they can
yeah.
put up in the foyer of the lab. And that's not the way the artist would approach it.
Yeah, and that's starting with the end point, which again
Mm-hmm.
is common to the way we work in impact quite often. Is like, where do you want to be? Well, quite often it's you learn this through the exploration, you learn this through the people you're working with. It shifts as it goes along, and that's a kind of different thing to wrap your head around as well, I think.
Oh, it is a different thing to wrap your head around. There's some funding applications I've been involved in helping with recently where once you start to get the co-production and the participatory research into it, it's very difficult to say what the end point's going to be. You can
Yeah,
say what the process is going to be, but you can't really say what the end
yeah,
point's going to be.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so you got into impact that way, and then you've said you went through a few different organizations working in impact type roles. So is drawing in the research development side of things then, is that new for you in this role you're in now?
Kind of, but I think I'd always, when I was doing my PhD, I was always working on research funding applications with the team. When I worked in museums, I was working with funding teams. As I said, I was like a magazine editor at one point. So I'm used to writing narrative and crafting a story. So that was always there as well. And I always worked on bids with the research development teams throughout. My last institution, I basically wrote a lot of the public engagement bids with the academics. I wrote the impact sections at most of the institutions I've worked with. So I kind of worked really closely with them on that. So it wasn't, I always did the costings, did the reading of the guidance, like that side of things. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
always been involved in teams convening people around these things. So
Yeah. So just the first time having it in your job description,
yeah,
maybe. And then is it the strategic part of it as well, I guess, the kind of horizon scanning and that sort of thing?
yeah, very much that. And again, I think that's something I've always done. It's always been the way that my mind has worked is what's going on in the sector. What should we be thinking about 3 years down the line? How is that going to inform what we're doing now? But yeah, there's more space for that because I'm not line managing, because the teams in the faculties are doing a lot of that. Then it's right, who can sit back and look at the way we're doing things and how we can improve them, because they
Yeah.
haven't got the space to necessarily do that, and they've
Yes.
not got that overview.
Yes, yeah, when they're in the weeds day to day, getting all the
Yeah.
paperwork and the costings and everything like that together
More
for the
specific
bids.
to their funders. So
Yeah,
you get to know your specific funders, but when it's cross council or interdisciplinary, it's a different thing. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But that very much that space, though, I think is where a lot of the most exciting things are
yeah.
happening, isn't it? These interdisciplinary spaces. Are there any particular? I guess there's some things you maybe can't talk about if they're in the process, but are there any particular bids that you've helped pull together that you can tell us about that you're proud of that work came together really well?
Not really on those. I tend to sit apart from them. Our
Mhm.
teams have done some amazing bids like this. The Joined Up Centre for Sustainable Transformations, I think it's called. So it's about the
Mhm.
transition to net zero, but making that inclusive. And the humanities team worked on that, but with the Young Foundation, with people from quite different disciplinary areas, with the kind of local authorities, they'll be working with people out in communities, really co-produce this work. So that's a really nice one, which I've not had much to do with myself, but it's kind of part of that way of working, which is it's a
Yeah.
really
It is these kind of interdisciplinary ones, bringing lots of different people together.
yeah,
Can I feel like it feels to me like the way forwards, but
yeah,
not necessarily everybody's on
yeah,
board
not
with
for
that, are
everything. No,
they? Yeah, not for everything, exactly.
yeah.
There's certainly some parts of research, and is that something you ever get a bit of pushback on? People saying, "Oh, that just doesn't work for the
Yeah, and
community,
and
our
rightly so. So
research,"
we've
or
we've
yeah,
got a lot of people doing fundamental research, blue skies research at the university, and that's always been one of our strengths. So we're really clear that not everything we have to do has to be challenge based. This is also an area of strength, but think about it, think about the impact, think about how it's where it might go. So it's the thinking about it, it's the not we're going to push you all down that route, because that's not right either. Some of our biggest discoveries have come through that fundamental research.
yeah, because sometimes you just fiddling around with stuff and then you never know where it's going to end up. Thinking about maybe then just your career more broadly, the sorts of things you do now, are there any projects or things you're involved with that really stand out as things that you're really proud of?
I think it's been culture shifts. So after working at Westminster, I did a bit of work there as a research associate working on impact, but then I moved to the University of Huddersfield, where I was based in the School of Arts, Humanities and Media, and Arts, Humanities and Media? Music, Humanities and Media. And they just created that role because they saw the value of impact. So it was the only role in the university that dealt with impact. There was a kind of a central role that was overseeing things, but in terms of the culture change, there was that role. I think in terms of that, I had to work a lot with senior management because I was the only role, even though I was faculty based. I was working with the senior leaders to push for change in areas like that. So we were kind of making friends across the university. We had what we called like PE club, but it's just a few of us were interested in public engagement in the basement. We brought together some people to talk about this, showed the university it mattered, and then they went for the Engage watermark. Or they saw, when they decided to read the REF impact case study draft, they saw that it was working in our faculty, and then other faculty started creating roles. So I think seeing that kind of thing come through. And then I worked at Manchester Met in a faculty-based impact management role. And again, there it was, I think, sometimes seeing some of the people that were most resistant at the start when I left with the people that seemed to be the saddest about me leaving. So I thought, okay, you really didn't want to work with me at the beginning. You're sad that I'm going, I must have done something right there. And people, especially like the early career researchers I'm working with, seeing them become more confident, seeing some of the bids that we work with come through and watching their careers grow. So it's that kind of culture change. And I think, where I am now, similarly, because I'm joining up people from across the university, I've had a few people come to me and say, I feel seen, like I don't feel that my area of research was seen before. Like somebody I've been working with, she said, I just went off and wrote a load of stuff the other day, Shed, and I've not been able to do it, but working with you has given me that kind of freedom and kind of headspace to do it. And then a very senior leader said the other day that like one of the governance groups that I coordinate said was like the best example of like one university thinking that I've seen. I thought, that's the achievement. So it's not like I won a massive bid, but in terms of culture change, there seems to be that kind of co-working. So it's more that kind of thing, I think.
Yeah, but that is when it comes to it, and that's one of the challenges, isn't it, in this kind of work, is actually in the grand scheme of things, that's the stuff that makes more of a difference, isn't it? Is actually if you can change somebody's thinking, that's more important than winning some big bid or running some event or something that you can point to and say, I did that. And it is this challenge, isn't it, with the way that we value and assess research. It's all about these kind of tick box outputs.
Yeah. What's your KPI for that?
Yeah.
So what have we done that's worked this year? And I can tell you about all these things, but trying to
actually put numbers or statistics or even anecdotes around it sometimes is really challenging, isn't it? But really powerful. So what do you think is the secret then to making these kind of culture shifts?
Listening, I think, caring. I think sometimes it's that you care about what you do, listening to people, and that join up, I think, not trying to own everything. If you can see something that you can't help with, but somebody else can, being able to let go of things and go, actually, no, I can't help you with that, but why don't you go and work with the policy team? Why don't you go and work with them? I think that kind of openness to different ways of thinking, different expertise, I think, but it's very relational. It's about the people. And I think my friend said to me, find your people. And I found my people. And then through those networks, they've got other networks. And that seems to create the force to make things happen.
Yeah, it is. There's certainly, with all the people I've spoken to on the podcast, different people have different approaches to making things happen. But it sounds like you've got that kind of quiet, relational, diplomatic way of influencing people, which can be incredibly powerful, but also unrecognized sometimes just not the time and the care that has to go into that sort of approach is sometimes not recognized.
It's tiring as well, isn't it? When you care so much. I think somebody said to me the other day, you have to not care so much. I was like, I can't. It is in my DNA. It's like I'd love if I didn't care, but then also I wouldn't be me and things wouldn't work in the same way.
Yeah, I think maybe that's what sometimes I feel like a little bit of that is what's lacking. I just we did an interview with, I'll mispronounce her name, Joanna Stadelbauer.
Oh, she's amazing.
Yes, and she was talking about how we need just academia to be a bit more kind.
Yeah, completely.
It's so adversarial sometimes, and in some sectors, and particularly with the financial challenges and things like that at the moment. The last thing we need to be is fighting against each other. It's better if we fight together.
Yeah, I think it's that protecting yourself as well, isn't it? So care, but also realise that what you can and can't take on is what I've learned
Yeah.
over years. It's
Yes.
won't be good for me or anyone if I keep taking on. So
No, true. Boundaries
yeah,
incredibly important. That sounds like it sounds like we're coming now to talk maybe about some of the things that have been a little bit challenging. So have
yeah,
boundaries been something that's been a bit challenging for you at times?
yeah. I think so. I think it's interesting. Yeah, I think there's probably two things
Hmm.
challenge-wise that really stick out. So I think universities, they are strange places, aren't they? Because they're very strange places. You can have decades of experience in your area, but then have to win the agreement of or defer to people that have got extensive academic experience, but maybe
Hmm.
not in your area. And they're
Yeah.
not usually the most senior. I find like I've got really good relationships with our senior people who respect that, but there can be other people that don't. So that could be frustrating because you can see it holding things back, or you can see things don't work as well as they can, or they could do, or you can see that 2 years down the line, you're doing what you suggested 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Exactly what was needed. So I think that it can be, yeah, living with that and learning to live with the fact that you can't control everything. I think, especially in a centralised role like me, I was like, that's not working, that's not working. It's what can you feasibly do? You can steer, you can guide, but you can't go in and fix everything yourself. So I think
Yeah.
that bit. I think the second one would be value clashes. So again, over the past few years, I've probably learned that probably forever. I'm really driven by my values and behaviours. I think when I've been in job interviews, I remember someone saying to me, well, that was an academic answer. When you're talking about the reasons that we do things, I'm not thinking maybe in terms of how a lot of professional services people think, why should we bring in income? Why should we do all these things? And I default to, well, it's our public duty. We've got to make the world a better place. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And I think my current manager actually said to me in my interview, that was a very ethical answer. So that comes through a lot. And I think, yeah, I've also been called like a canary in the coal mine, is something someone said. I'm very sensitive to what's going on. So if there are microaggressions and that kind of, I was reading an article about it the other day about incivility, that kind of subtle level of unkindness. I can't, I can't work within that. I found myself having to, trying to change those situations first of all, but then having to admit when I'm not going to change that, it's bigger than me to move course. So I think it's understanding that and thinking, yeah, I can't fix this. This is bigger than
No.
me. So understanding those things, which I'm lucky I've got a very nice team now. I've worked with many wonderful teams, but I think it's learning about yourself, isn't it? What are your lines in the sand? What do you
Yeah.
work with? Yeah,
I think the older I get, the more I realize that our careers and it's all just a huge long process of self-discovery,
yeah,
isn't it? It's about learning what you're good at, what you're not so good at, what you can tolerate, what you can't
yeah,
tolerate, where your boundaries are, where's
yeah,
the line that if that's crossed,
yeah.
it's not going to be good for anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I am. Yeah, I think again, my manager said when I came to the mission, "Oh, we've got an empath," but in a nice way. She's, "We've got an empath," and I was like, "Really? How have you got that from me in a few weeks?" But I think, yeah, I probably am more sensitive to some of these things than other people. But usually, it plays out a few years down the line when things start falling apart. And I think oh yeah,
Yes.
it's spotting those things. But yeah, knowing again boundaries. Boundaries very important.
It sounds like, as well as being empathetic, you're also very intuitive as well. So, like you say, maybe recognizing almost that gut feeling of this is
Yeah,
the way things are going, which I can see is useful both from the relational point of view, but also that kind of horizon scanning for
yeah,
your job, like
yeah,
intuition about which people will work well together
yeah.
or which projects are going to be like a good fit, which ones are going to be, where's the world going, where's that going to
Yeah,
be.
and that does
So
happen. Like we had a lovely project the other week where we've been pairing academics with kind of people we've got relationships with in the community, working with the social responsibility team, just sending them out, and they've gone for 3 brews together, like gone for 3 chats together, just get to know each other and see what learning there is and if there's learning from the university about that. And I did the pairing for that, kind of knowing things about them, speaking to people who knew them, reading about their backgrounds, and quite a lot have come back and said, how did you do that? Like we really hit
mhm.
it off. And I was like, I don't really know, but it must be that kind of intuition about
Yeah,
that way of
yeah.
working. It's very impact mindset, isn't it? I think I know, like I'm an art historian, I guess, cultural historian by background, and it's that picking up evidence piecing things together. I think it comes with that as well.
Yeah, potentially. I think as well, I wonder if it's with the arts background that
Mm,
often in the arts it's about intangible stuff, isn't it?
yeah.
It's about how does this art affect how you feel
Yes.
or that sort of thing, or the story that it's trying to tell. Not in a literal sense,
Yeah.
but in that more kind of sensory, intuitive kind of way.
Probably with museums as well, I think, because museum audiences are, you can break them down, but they're potentially everyone. So you've got to think about what's going to appeal to this person. How are they going to learn? Are they going to learn anything about history? Do we care? Or are they going to learn from their granddad talking to them about their past as they go around? So I think it's some of that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, and just recognizing that different people are different and need different things and different
Yeah.
levels of support and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Oh, really interesting. I love thinking about this stuff. So I think as I like to ask my guests, if they had a magic wand, what would they
Mm.
change about the world that they work in? What would you like to use your magic wand for?
Blimey. So you mentioned the adversarial stuff. So that would be one. I hate the
Mm,
fact that everything becomes a competition between universities and things like that, especially around kind of public engagement. And anything that becomes a hot topic for ref or
mm,
wherever, suddenly you find yourself competing. But I think for me, it is that relational space. So I think it would be more funding, more time, more support for the stages either side of the research. So create time and space to co-create research questions, but also to sit in that space and get to know different groups, different individuals that we might do research with, find those commonalities without it being transactional. And same on the other side, time to maintain those relationships and evolve them without just thinking about the next funding bid or the project. So I think of it as like creating space for what you might have water cooler moments. If you were at a conference, if you worked in an office together, which you don't get with these kind of groups, but something like that, kind of bringing together and that creative relational spaces and not everything have to be in transactional, because I've seen that these seem to be the spaces that are actually most productive. But again,
mm.
you can't put a price on it. You can't say, yeah,
No,
we
you
can do
can't
that because
quantify
this will
them.
lead to this, but quite often they do.
Yeah, yeah, no, and it's I agree, it's so valuable, but because it's slow and time consuming
Yeah,
and there isn't always a clear, definite outcome for it, it can feel hard to prioritize.
yeah,
But I've seen that, yeah, when people do prioritize it, it moves
yeah,
mountains. Yeah, just getting to know people on a level
yes,
as people
yeah,
can just be just like you say about people feeling seen and understood.
and build that trust. And the things that come up when you've not got an agenda and you find
Mhm.
some commonality that you hadn't even thought about. So
Yeah,
you can never
yeah.
plan for that. If you've got a really strict agenda, you're not going to find those things, are you?
Yeah, absolutely. You need that space and time to talk about things. And it's one of
Yeah,
the challenges now, isn't it, with things being online? There are huge benefits, obviously,
yeah,
with things being online, but I think we lose that space for
yeah,
casual
definitely.
conversation, don't
Yeah,
we? Yeah, yeah. I think we're moving. I don't know, things are moving and changing, aren't they, all the time? But I think people are starting to realize the downsides of living online.
yeah, and I think there's slightly more space for that kind of test and fail thing. Like we're trying
Mhm.
to do bits of it, but people seem to be moving a bit more. It's hard in this financial climate, but allowing a bit of space for risk and
Yeah,
seeing kind of what happens if you have those
yeah.
fail spaces. It's
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, really, such again a kind thing to do for people if you
yeah,
can create those spaces. Yeah. Oh, lovely. We should think about wrapping up our
yeah,
conversation.
yeah.
And I think that idea of making things a little bit kinder is a lovely place. A little bit kinder, a little bit slower is a lovely place to leave it. And if people want to get in touch with you, find out more about what you do, where is the best place to find you?
Usually on LinkedIn, I think is the easiest place to find me. Otherwise, on the research strategy pages on the university website, there's a link
Yeah.
to me there as well.
Excellent. We'll get links to those and put them in the show notes. Definitely, yeah. LinkedIn is where we connected, and you're certainly
Yeah,
very
yeah.
active there. So, good place to come and see what you're up to. Oh, thank you so much for taking the time to come along and share your story. And it's been so interesting. Thank you.
Lovely. Lovely to meet you.
Thanks for listening to Research Adjacent. If you're listening in a podcast app, please check you're subscribed and then use the links in the episode description to find full show notes and to follow the podcast on LinkedIn or Instagram. You can also find all the links and other episodes at www.researchadjacent.com. Research Adjacent is presented and produced by Sarah McCluskey, and the theme music is by Lemon Music Studios on Pixabay. And you, yes you, get a big gold star for listening right to the end. See you next time.